Well, hi, Lizzy.
Hi, Pam.
I'm glad you could join the birth story medicine community today. I met Lizzy Liao through an email, and she wrote to me about her very interesting experience, a traditional Chinese 40-day postpartum recovery that was led by her mother-in-law. So we had a chance to talk, and now I want to share with all of you Lizzy and her insights and experience with this traditional postpartum support. So thank you for coming to share with us today. So
Thank you
go
so much.
ahead and tell us, you were living in China and Shanghai for 8 years,
Yes.
and that's where you met your husband,
Yes. Yeah.
who actually happened to be from Long Island, you told me.
Yes, we grew up 40 minutes from each other and met halfway around the world.
That's pretty wonderful. And you fell in love, and then 15 months ago your child was born, and your child is
My daughter is named Lila, and
uh,
she was born in the States. We planned to give birth in China, where we were living and had our businesses. And then COVID happened, and we ended up relocating and coming back home, back to the New York area. And yeah, it was a big surprise, but one that was truly life changing. When I was in my third trimester, my mother in law approached me and she asked if I would be open to taking part in kind of a facilitated recovery. Now, I had done so much preparation for the birth process and was really fixated on that. And I'd done a little bit of postpartum reading, but was totally naive to the journey that the postpartum time is. So I hesitantly agreed, not fully understanding what her intentions were. Although I had seen in China when I was living in Shanghai what some of my friends had gone through, which was essentially being totally off the radar for the first month or two after they gave birth. And essentially, what my mother in law did for me was facilitate what is called 坐月子, which translates to sitting the month. And it's for 30 or 40 days in my case. It's a period of time where I was mothered by my mother in law. I was told to rest and recover, and that was all that I was allowed to do. So I stayed mostly in bed and in my room with my newborn daughter, breastfeeding her and just cuddling her basically. And my mother in law every day would make just these super nourishing broths and soups and stews and traditional porridges with ingredients like red jujube dates to help to balance and heal my uterus, and ginger to bring internal heat in my body, goji berries to help with re-adding minerals to my blood, and so many different really hearty and wholesome dishes. Everything was made fresh. She also had me stay warm and dry. So I was always wearing bathrobes and socks and different layers, even though I gave birth in August. And I made sure that anytime I showered, I would dry myself and my hair immediately. There's a saying in several cultures, but in China, 40 days for 40 years. And what that means is the first 40 days after a woman gives birth, this is a super crucial healing and recovery time that impacts the next 40 years of her life. Whenever I wanted to do more than just lay in bed and rest, my mother in law would warn me that later in my life I would age quicker or get achy joints or problems with my brain health if I really didn't take it easy and allow for recovery early on. And having grown up in America, where I'm told that, we can do it all as women and we're strong and fierce and bouncing back was kind of the expected way of being, it was a huge shift to be in this month kind of container where I was held and nurtured and received so much care and wasn't expected to be back on my feet doing all the things right away. So it was a totally life changing experience. I had a physical healing that was extremely quick. Emotionally, I felt so centered and grounded. And at the end of that experience, honestly, Pam, I felt better physically, with my energy, emotionally, spiritually, than I had in years. And that's waking up every 2 to 3 hours to feed an infant. So even with all the disrupted sleep, I felt so good.
Yeah, that's
And
amazing.
yeah.
How did the 40 days end? Is there a ceremony or a ritual to say to close it, or how does that happen?
That's a great question. My mother-in-law was really focused on kind of the um, the food and the rest container, and she wasn't as involved in kind of the more spiritual or ceremonial aspect. But what I did, because at the time I had started researching other cultures and their postpartum experiences, because I was absolutely fascinated by this, and after learning about other cultures that have a number of traditions, like in Mexico, the closing of the bones ceremony or the burying of the placenta in certain Native American traditions, I felt really called to kind of create my own completion. So I actually did, I buried my placenta in the back of the garden and had kind of a meditation and used that experience as a chance to kind of feel complete in that container. But
Awesome.
there, yeah, there's a ton of different kind of witnessing and traditions around the world, and including in China.
Mhm.
But my experience that was more of the rest and the food and
Mhm.
the physical recovery.
So, what happened to your husband during this 40 days? Was he there? Is that an exclusive woman container
The
just for women?
Yeah, so it was facilitated by my mother-in-law, and traditionally in China, older aunties or family friends or mothers or mother-in-laws are the ones that facilitate it. My husband was so incredible. He was very active and present in helping out with a lot of the household activities and taking care of my daughter. He was the king of bath time and diaper changes for her. But that's more of a modern way. And in certain mother centered cultures that I've researched for my book, I found that certain men, they are literally excluded. They are kept out of the room or out of the hut or out of wherever the woman is based, or she'll even move on her own back into her parents or in laws for that period of time. And that's for a number of reasons. But yeah, my husband was pretty involved in taking care of our daughter and also taking care of me. It was really beautiful. A lot of the times when I would be feeding Lila, both my hands were occupied. So he would come in with whatever my mother in law had made and he would feed me.
Oh, wow. That's a that's a real change for your relationship for him to be there for you in that way.
It really was.
So I know our viewers on YouTube are going to want to meet you and talk to you and learn even more from you. So tell us how they can meet you and what kinds of things you're offering.
Thank you so much. So I have two focused offerings right now. The first is one on one private coaching for prenatal and postpartum. And that coaching really is uh, private sessions where I hold space and help the mama or mama to be process on a kind of spiritual and emotional level. And also, I offer nutrition counseling as well as preparation for postpartum. So, for a lot of the mamas I work with, I help them to kind of create their own version of that 坐月子 sitting in month based on their home environment or budget or goals and intentions. The other offering that I have, Pam, is I work with women in small, intimate containers in the form of women's circles. So I host women's circles for expecting mamas for pregnancy, as well as for early postpartum. And I found that one element of my experience postpartum that was benefited by kind of the modernizing was that I was able to virtually connect with other women in the postpartum time. Uh, in some of the traditional postpartum days, women are really secluded and kept to themselves, and so I found that connection is really important. So my two offerings: one-on-one coaching for prenatal and postpartum, and then the women's circle, so small group connection.
Oh, that's great because some people need that community connection and some people really need one-on-one.
Yeah.
So tell us, we'll put up your a link to how they can reach you
Yeah.
and you'll come back and see us?
I would love that. Yes. And if anyone has questions, my website is my name, LizzyLiao.com, LizzyLiao.com. And I would love to connect with anyone for a conversation to learn about how they're doing, what's present for them, and if they maybe had their own postpartum experience or hopes for it. It's a fallacy that we need to be doing this on our own. This isn't a solo journey. This really is something that every woman deserves community and support as she undergoes the biggest transition of her life.
I agree. Wonderful. Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.